Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look and installing the Roadmaster Smart Diode Kit for towed vehicles on a 2020 Chevrolet Spark. Now, your diode wiring is simply going to run from a 6-pole in the front of the vehicle back to the taillights where we tie into the factory wiring. And what that means is we can simply just plug in our umbilical and it's going to receive those light sequences from the RV. So if you plan on flat towing your vehicle more than a few times a year, this is a nice easy way to do it. And also having a 6-pole up front means that you can tie in other accessories like a charge line with a 12-volt power supply. So it does have some benefits. Now the alternative to diode wiring would be magnetic tow lights. And your magnetic tow lights will simply just sit on the vehicle, but you do have quite a bit of wire that you're going to be draping over your vehicle up to the 4-pole on your RV. And downside is you definitely have wires that are going to rub on the top of your vehicle, and also you have to store these. Once you have your diode wires installed on your taillights, you don't have to worry about anything. It's in place. All you have to do is plug and play, and that's one less thing that you have to worry about taking care of. Now your connection point on the towed vehicle, as I mentioned before, is going to be your 6-pole, and that does not come with the diode wiring kit, nor does it come with the umbilical to make that connection between your vehicle and the 7-pole on the RV. So a few different options. You can pick those up separately, individually, or you can actually find some tow bars that come with both of these included. So that's something to look for. If you have your own tow bar already, you can again get these all separate, but you will need this to accomplish that diode wiring. To begin our install, you're going to want to have your diode wiring have a little excess here right where you're going to be mounting up your 6-pole, and that way it's a little easier to attach the wires. You don't want to cut it too short. I always leave myself a little extra run of it, and that way you can always cut some more off. It'll make it a lot easier for attaching. Now you may notice this loose red wire. This is going to be for a charge line, which on this vehicle has a battery disconnect. So this is a great easy addition to put into your 6-pole, and that way it's going to charge your battery as you're going down the road, and when you get to the campsite your battery's not going to be dead. So you're also going to want to route this wire with the diode wiring. That way you can tie it into the 6-pole. But from here we're just going to go ahead and make our way towards the back of the car. Now from here, there is an underbody panel that we've gone ahead and removed to make it a little bit easier to route over. And the main goal when running these wires is to stay away from anything hot, moving, or pretty much anything that can cause any potential damage to the wiring. So following along the frame rails generally is a good way to do it, or factory wire loom is also normally a pretty safe option. So I've gone ahead and just kind of routed this along our frame rail and then made our way up over this cross member. Now I ended up going over to the passenger side along the cross member, and that's because there is some factory hard lines here, and you can see these brackets. You want to zip tie these to the brackets. Make sure that those aren't on the lines. You don't want that chafing. But this is going to be a nice safe way to keep the wires up tight and nice and clean and protected for the lifespan of it. We just kind of routed this back towards the fuel tank here. Now at this point, you're going to want to grab the end of your diode wiring and peel back the white wire. And we're going to go a decent ways back because we need to put a ground underneath the chassis. And this is also going to become excess wire that we can use to jump between taillights. So I peeled this back so we can get a ring terminal and our self-tapping screw. I looked for a factory ground to tie this to. I didn't find one, but the self-tapping screw is going to accomplish the same thing. So we'll just cut this excess here and hold on to this extra so we can route those wires later on. So we'll just strip back a little bit of a end here, and we'll just crimp this down. And with the self-tapping screw, we're just going to find a nice solid point here on the frame. I'm going to probably put mine right here. So you go ahead and zip this in. Now you don't have to get too crazy. You want it snug to where the ring terminal is not moving around, but any tighter than that, you run the risk of stripping out the hole that you made. So go ahead and get this mounted up. So now we're going to go ahead and split our green wire, and this is going to allow us to run this to our right turn signal or our right tail light. And our yellow and brown will go over to our driver's side. Now that extra length of white wire will also go up here, and then it'll jumper over. So as we run this over, let's go ahead with that white wire and do that. That's one less wire that we'll have to run back. Now, in order to get our wires up to where we need to tie into, we do have to take the taillights out, so we'll go ahead and do that now. You'll just open up your hatch and you're going to see that there's 2 Phillips head screws, so just go ahead, get those removed. And then your taillight generally has plastic plugs that kind of go into a rubber grommet, so sometimes it can kind of fight you, but give it a quick bump here or there. You can kind of pry back up on this top portion. Just be careful, you don't want to crack your taillight. And once you have it to this point, don't pull too hard because these wires aren't technically that long. So we do need to separate our bulbs from our lens, and these are just going to be a 1/4 turn. So we'll just go ahead and get these popped out. And then we can set our taillight aside. Now, to get the wires pulled up, we're going to be using a fish wire technique. I use an airline hose. You can use an extra wire or a coat hanger, anything to kind of pass this down, and that way we can tape it up and pull the wires up. So get this passed down. And then from here, I'll show you how I kind of routed the wires over before taping this up and pulling those wires up. So I passed it through a hole that we had on the bumper impact bar area, and then just routed our brown and yellow as well as our white wire over, just kind of tucking it up. The main thing is staying away from the exhaust, so just route that up over spots, and you may need to zip tie that up to make sure that long term it doesn't get loose and make contact with the exhaust. So at this point we have our fish wire that we passed down. I'll just go ahead and tape this onto our pull wire. And then from the top, we'll pull this up, and that'll bring our wires up to where we need them. So now with our wires pulled up, we're going to have quite a bit of excess. Now make sure that you have enough length to make it over with your white wire to the passenger side taillight. I've already gone ahead and kind of made sure that mine has that length. And at this point, I'm going to just go ahead and cut our wires. And we'll strip back each of the ends. And what I'm going to do is we're going to jump the brown and white together, and there is a yellow butt connector that's included. So what we're going to do is we'll attach this one first, and with that excess wire that we cut off, we'll make a small little jumper here. So go ahead, twist your white and brown together, get your butt connector on and crimp down. And any butt connector connections, once you crimp it down, give it a quick tug just to make sure that it is solidly attached. And then I'm going to cut a small length from our extra brown wire where that will make its way over to one of our spade connectors. And since this is for a larger gauge for 2 wires, if you need to, you can strip back a little excess here on your short jumper and then bend that over so it has a little bit more bite in that butt connector. And then we'll strip back our yellow as well. Now before we attach this into place, we're going to want to tie into our factory wires. Now on this one here, you're going to grab the bulb that has the red and black, and we're going to want to cut back somewhere along here so it's easy to make a connection on our red wire. And then we'll strip back both ends here. And then grab your smart diode, and these are going to attach to the car brake in and car brake out. So we'll just, to keep ourselves organized here, just pull off these spade connectors, and we're going to make that attachment point on the wires we just stripped back. Okay. And then grab your diode, and we'll just make this connection. So your car brake out will be towards the bulb, and then car brake in will be that other side of the wire. Now we're also going to take our spade connectors from the top here off, and these will connect to our jumper wire and as well as our yellow. So let's go ahead, we'll get the yellow one on. And this is going to go to RV brake, and then our jumper wire is going to be our RV tail. And then you'll see that we have this last one here, which is going to be our ground. And in the kit, there is a little white jumper wire for our ground, so we can go ahead and get our spade terminal attached to that. And the other end, we're going to use our ring terminal and a self-tapping screw to get this grounded. Okay. So now we have all of our connections made, and what I'm going to do, just for a little, just to protect this a little bit, is we'll get our taillights or our bulbs put back in our taillight, but I'm going to tape these up, these connections, just to make sure that there's no stress on the wires causing them to pull out. Just putting some electrical tape around these will help protect that. If you have extra slack, your diode has a double-sided tape. You can peel that off and get it to stick wherever you need to, but really this is got a fairly tight compartment here, so it should hold it pretty safely in there. So we'll just go ahead and get our taillight put back in place. And we'll get this one back in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass my wires. So I'm going to fish wire up my green wire as well as that white jumper wire up on the passenger side, and then I'll show you how I made those connections. Pretty easy. It's still going to be that red wire that we're going to be cutting in from the factory, so you can go ahead and make that connection. I have my ground, and then our RV brake is going to be our green wire that we pulled up, and our RV tail is going to be that white wire that we're using as a jumper. So I'll go ahead, get these taped up, and our taillight put back in. With both diodes put in place and our taillights put back up, now is a good time to go ahead and zip tie up any of those wires so that they're nice and secure. So now we'll head up to the front of the vehicle where we're going to attach it to our 6-pole. Now, getting our wiring mounted up to our 6-pole, the diode wiring doesn't come with it. A lot of times your tow bar will come with one, or you can pick one up here at eTrailer, but this is going to be your connection point with your umbilical to go to the 7-pole on your RV to transmit your signals. So all of your 6-poles will have a little boot. So what we'll do is we'll take this and slide it back for now. And this is where having that extra length of wire here will make it a little bit easier. I'll go ahead and separate these. I do have quite a bit of extra here, so I'm going to just cut back a little bit. And then we'll just strip back all the ends. Now I'll be tying my charge line in at this time too, so if you have a charge line kit, make sure that you are tying this in at the same time. Now on your 6-pole, there are going to be letters right below each of the screws to let you know where these go. Now the center tall post will be where the charge line goes, and to get these in place, a small Phillips, you're going to want to back the screw out. Now don't go all the way. These are real tiny and they're hard to find if you drop them, so just back it out enough to where you can get the wire fed in, and then you'll just slide that in there and tighten it down. You don't need to get crazy. You don't want to damage the wire. You just want it snug. So we'll go ahead and get this tightened down. And then I'm going to get the rest of mine attached and I'll show you where they go. So I've gone ahead and got these tightened down, and I'll walk you through here. So TM is going to be our tail markers. That's going to be at the 12 o'clock position. That's going to be our brown wire. Next we have GD for ground, which will be our white. LT is going to be our left turn, so our yellow, and then RT will be our green for right turn signal. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of wire loom and wrap it around these wires and tuck it in the boot, and that way it looks a little bit cleaner. You're not going to see all those wires up front. Now, with all of our attachments made, what I do is I backfill it with black silicone, and that's just going to protect these plugs from getting any condensation buildup, and just long term, this will make sure that it prevents any damage. So I'll go ahead with this RTV and just fill this up. I'm also going to take some electrical tape and just kind of wrap this around where our boot is, again, just to kind of give it added protection and make it a little bit more watertight. Now you may need to trim a little bit of the front grille here just so that there's clearance for this to go, but you're going to have self-tapping screws that come with your base plate, and these are going to just tighten down here. Now, obviously keep in mind that this is plastic. You don't have to get crazy here. You just want to snug it down. And then with this in place, if you have your charge line already ran up, you can attach it to your 12 volt battery post, and that way you have that connection, and then all that's left to do is test to make sure that it works. And best way to do that is take your umbilical and hook it up to your RV. Have your RV run through the running lights, the turn signals, and brake lights to make sure that they're transmitting to the back of the vehicle. Now we'll be testing our diodes. We have a test box that's going to simulate an RV, but you're going to go through the same sequence that we would. So we'll start off with our running lights. Next we'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brake lights. Now with everything working properly, all that's left to do is get the rest of our flat tow components set up and then hit the road. And that was a look and installation of the Roadmaster Smart Diode Wiring Kit for towed vehicles on a 2020 Chevrolet Spark.